evening, wherever you are.
Y agradecer la presencia.
We want to welcome you all, and we want to welcome the new organizations that are here in this action day against the biomass energy. My name is Diego, from the collective Viento Sur, Wind of the South in Chile, and we are part of the Global Forest Coalition and the network.
Estamos haciendo esta convocatoria para reunir a los territorios de Paraguay y Brasil.
Where we want this first gathering to include friends from Brazil and friends from Paraguay. We want to welcome Hinoi and Faces. And right now we're going to give them the floor so they can speak about what's going on their territories. Because they are representatives from the communities, from the territories. And they're going to talk about the situation that's going on in the continent, about the exploitation, about the expansion of the monoculture of trees. So we can present ourselves. We have a small part of the program for that. So I give the floor to continue with the presentations.
Bueno, compañeras y compañeros, yo soy Eduardo Guisen, también del colectivo Viento Sur de
friends.
Chile.
I am Eduardo Guisen from the collective Viento del Sur, Winds of the South from Chile. Maybe the representative of Hanoi, and he introduce himself and the territory he's in. Good afternoon, everybody. I am Omar Liampey from Paraguay, from the Center of Studies Hanoi, and I'm really happy to share this debut of global action. And we're going to be sharing our experience about the experience we had in San Pedro about the plantation of eucalyptus that are going over the territories from small farmers and indigenous. And I'm happy to be here. Thank you, Omar. Marcelo and Flavia. I want to give the floor to Eduardo so he can start the conversation.
Sí, compañeras y compañeros.
Hello,
Creí que me había
friends.
presentado ya.
I
Eduardo
thought
Guisen,
I
del
have
colectivo
introduced
Viento Sur de
myself.
Chile,
I'm Eduardo.
Coordinando
I'm
este espacio
coordinating
también desde acá de
this
Chile,
piece
en
from
conjunto
here from
con la
Chile
Coalición Mundial por los
with
Bosques y la
the
Red Ambiental
coalition
del Papel.
uh,
Mucho gusto de estar con ustedes.
of the coalition for forests and against paper networks.
Gracias, Eduardo.
Thank you, Eduardo.
Hago llamado también a las compañeras del
I
colegio
want to invite my
y también a los compañeros de
colleagues from Viento Sur to introduce themselves and from the rest of the coalition and to welcome everybody to this gathering. Hello, everybody. I am Joana Molina, also from the collective Viento del Sur, Wind of the South. And I really hope that this gathering is going to be very fruitful. Gracias. Thank you, Joanna.
Buenas tardes, compañeras, compañeros.
Good afternoon,
Saludos,
friends. I'm Camille, also from the collective Viento del Sur. I'm very thankful for this opportunity to be able to hear the experience of other territories in relation to the expansion of tree plantations and cellulose plants. And I'm really happy to be able to share the work that we're doing in order to bring down this system that it's growing in Latin America. Greetings to everybody.
Gracias, Camila.
Thank you, Camila. We are looking forward for the rest of the participants and the rest of the people on the network so they can introduce themselves and we can start our conversation.
Hello, good night, everyone. My name is Mirta Santos.
Na África e desejo a todos excelente evento.
I'm talking to you from Cape Verde in Africa, and I wish you all a great meeting.
Muchas gracias, Mirta.
Thank you very much, Mirtes.
Boa noite, meu nome é Flávia, sou quilombola também.
Good evening, my name is Flavia, I'm also Quilombola, and I'm here to talk a little bit more about my territory in Brazil.
Gracias, Flavia. Comentarte.
Thank you, Flavia. I want to tell you that Fernando has sent Diego the presentation, so anytime you need, he can share the screen, the presentation on the screen. We want to invite our friends from the Global Forest Coalition to introduce themselves. Hello, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. Congratulations to the organizers. My name is Simón Lovera. I am from the Global Forest Coalition, and I'm participating from Paraguay.
Hi, everybody. My name is Manian. I'm also with the Global Forest Coalition. I work mostly on our bioenergy and plantations related campaigns, and I'm supporting some of the work that our member groups in the Global South are doing. And we've been involved in events throughout the day today. As Diego said, it's the International Day of Action Against Big Biomass. So we started this morning with events in the Asia Pacific region, moved through to Africa in the afternoon, my time that is. And so it's great, very late here now, but it's great to be hearing you all, and I'm really looking forward to hearing your presentations and learning about your struggles.
Muchas gracias, Oliver, también por el trabajo.
Thank you, Oliver, and thank you for your work.
Bueno, si hay alguien más que quiera saludar o dar la bienvenida a este encuentro, queremos...
If there's someone else who wants to say hi, can do it right now, because we want to start with the program that we have shared and to give
Sí, gracias, Omar. Puede comenzar si estás listo. Muchas gracias.
Ahí se me escucha bien.
Can you hear me okay? Yes, we hear you well. So again, I'd like to thank you for this space to celebrate this day of action, world action. My name is Mariam Pe. I am here at the Center for Studies in Hanoi in Paraguay. And one of the things that I want to do is share some work that we did, studies that we did with the accompaniment with the Global Forest Coalition in the territory of San Pedro, Paraguay, which has a particularity of having the highest level of poverty in the population as a whole, and also the highest levels of inequality. And these are the territories are where the cases that we want to share with you, two companies that are financed by the Fondo Uruguay. And so I would like to share this with you. And now more than ever, I think it is very important to bring a signal to this. There's a consensus among different international organizations, governments, and other political orientations that there's a consensus that we need to reduce the damages that are happening because of, that are causing climate change. But there is a disagreement about what are the methods and mechanisms for understanding the causes of these, the origin of the damage and the ecosystem, and what are the solutions. So it is important to mention the role and the thinking of critical thinking. It's very important in order to overcome these discourses that are being entered and that that organizations are offering that are false solutions, as several colleagues on this call are going to be indicating. And in Paraguay, in the last few years, these type of forestry business, which is based on the same history of agribusiness in other areas. And now there's this discourse of new models and try to carry or to send to Asia something that's more friendly with the environment. But it's similar. The characteristic that we have in Paraguay with the concept of institutionality, where the state has been captured by an economic elite that are the ones who define the ideas that this is going to be implemented. And so it is handled by the political powers and the economic elite. And we also want to mention that the work that we've been doing and the work that we're presenting is coming from a broader campaign here in Paraguay with allied organization with an emphasis on the dimension of territorialism, because there was already a discourse being established, but what was missing was the dimension of the perspective of community members. Because if you go and this is a characteristic of this business model, this forestry business, they have incorporated in their intelligence, their frameworks, their scientific frameworks. It's more sophisticated. If you read the studies of environmental impact, they talk about the problem of poverty. They're going to give in jobs. They're going to address the environmental crisis, and it's perfect. And so it's not anything that you could argue with. So from the perspective of the communities, we are seeing the truth. The reality is being reflected by community members themselves. And so this is what we're trying to work on. So now, the forestry business as a process that also, which is an attractive agro-industrial practice that is exporting that affects the natural environment, creates conflicts over land, and it dismantles the community integration. We're going to talk a little bit about how this happens in different techniques or mechanisms that they use to infiltrate the communities, and also how they're going to affect water, land, air, etc. In the two cases are Forestal San Pedro and Apepu, that both are located in the San Pedro region, and with the financing of this fund Arbaro. So also we want to look at the regional context, because we wanted to put a light on what is happening in Chile. The colleagues are going to be talking about this more to bring more light to the experience also in Brazil, the experience in Uruguay. We need to see what is happening in the region in order to have better tools to stop these processes, because this reality in South America and the conditions, ecological and environmental conditions and social conditions are terrifically important. And for this is why we are looking at these issues. And there's several actors. They talk about eucalyptus plantations, which are primarily eucalyptus, have negative impacts in terms of water, the nutrition for the soils, the chemical and physical condition of the soil, and the economic conditions and the human populations living there. So in Paraguay, we looked at a timeline to see at what point this type of development in the recent history has become a model for forestry. In the 70s and 80s, there was a dictatorial regimen, and always has been connected to an institutional legitimization So the characteristic in Paraguay is that the state is controlled by a political and economic elite. And so the state legalizes and legitimizes these businesses for small numbers of people. But this has been going on for years, from the 70s and 2000, for example. It was more dispersed, but there's a strategic rationalization that's incorporating a national plan. And this is when we start to see the expansion of large surfaces of eucalyptus plantations. We also have the liberalization and agents who are national and international, and then there was the opening of the international market for exportation of exotic trees, which was the law 6616, and then this Paracel, which is a company that produces cellulose. And so, as I said, from 2015 to 2020, the surface area of one department expanded. And as we said, the anti-national political policy is all in the mark of sustainable development and the Paris agreements. So they link their discourse with the intention of advancing their businesses. And so in Paraguay, if there data about the purposes of forestry, there's also a lot of focus on biomass, and the reduction of costs and the value chain of agribusiness is and the cattle business in Paraguay. In the Forestal APEPU in 2019, this is very recently that in 2020, they started these companies to operate. And in very short time, at least in the case of Forestal APEPU, there was a percentage of taking over land in a very small space of time. And when we learned of this, there were no 3 or 4 other locations that had been incorporated, but in a very few months they were there. And they're so efficient, and how the Paraguayan state is so efficient with this business, but when there are other social needs, the bureaucracy of the state is an incredible headache. So Forestal San Pedro in 2021 has approximately 88,000 hectares, and they invest in 2 models of concentration of the land. One is very territorialized, and you can identify it with clarity, the impact that is having in the communities. And then in Forestal San Pedro, it's dispersed and in the department and the region and other regions. And so it's difficult to see which are the plantations because the zone is inundated by these plantations. So the criticisms that we have is that they affect social, economic, ecological consequences. They bring no benefits to the community. They cause conflicts over the land. They generate a very poorly paid work. And we're going to talk a little bit more about this later. And we'll talk with some of the staff from Forestal APEPU, and they'll be able to talk about the conditions in which they work in, the insecurity, et cetera, et cetera. This is Forestal APEPU and the perspective of the communities. And here is the truth that we can see in comparison to what the companies say with their big comment, their engineers and their documents that are extended and very refined. And for the community, it's completely the reverse. There's an environmental impact, and they don't, the birds don't arrive. There's a silence now, and in the past there were houses and the soy plantations and corn is right in there with the eucalyptus plantations. There are conflicts with the land and well-being of the communities, and this creates problems with the area. For example, in San Pedro, there's a problem in an historic area where it has a conflictive reality over the land because it's not titled, and even still they take advantage. And so there's a tension that's latently present there. And there's a colony of 17,000 hectares without any titles for the land, and there are populations there, and still the plantations come in and plant their trees. And in the Forestal Apepu, we see how they are inserting into the communities based on what the operator told us there. They co-opt the community leaders because they're in communities with integrated struggle. And so what they are able to do is give work to their children. And in this way, the individual can do, and they can have in his head that this is good for small producers, and so this is how they're able to infiltrate, and they use these different mechanisms, but one of them is co-opting with resources and offering employment to the younger children in this community. And they also talk about one of the residents said in a dialogue that the operator was a young person without land, and instead of struggling for his community and his community, he's working with the plantation, and they say they're going to give them jobs, but it's a model of jobs that is completely antagonistic with the family campesino type of agriculture. And so this is dismantling the community structure, the fabric. And here there are folks of, it's not just taking over the land for soy or for cattle, but there is a police from Paraguay and the army and other, which has confrontations in these communities and mechanisms that are more sophisticated.
That's why we really cannot evidence that there are opposition from the communities, because they are working on the plantations and they are losing their self-sufficient crops like mandioca. So with money, they are pushing away the small farmers, and the production is not it's not productive, and that instead of selling their products, they should sell eucalyptus because it's more profitable. And since because of the distance, and there was no because the distance is so far and they are not connected like in the cities where we have a number of communication things. In the communities, they only have one message, and they are telling the small farmers that this is the business and they had to adapt. This is how they privatize the the entrance to one of the communities. And this generates some kind of problem because they are deciding to privatize. And that's another paradox because they are privating the small farmers from property, because property is in the community of Julián Portillo. Well, now we are going, they are speaking about social commitment, but the truth is that they want to stay with the commune, with the land. And we have seen that in so many levels. Nevertheless, as soon as we talk about environmental or social impact, they say that they are going to give work and so on. And everybody says that this business is so committed, but from the point of view of the community, it's not true, because it's everything the contrary of the documents say. In the case of the Apetu, the Estancia Apetu, they have been working in insecurity. They have lived the youth without land, and instead of thinking on how to struggle, how to fight, he is inserted in all this system. And because we don't know, this business is going to last for like 1 decade, and then we don't know. So this model of annex that it's called outgrower, this is draconian because the contract with the small farmers is one thing that how we're not denouncing this in so many places, because this is violating the rights of small farmers, of indigenous communities, and it's so awkward in relation to their culture. Those contracts go against the interest of the communities. So since they don't own the land, and then their land is for eucalyptus, then the personnel of the enterprise, of the corporation, they can enter anytime, anywhere. So in case that the contract is not fulfilled, it will the contract will stay with to benefit the enterprise. If we see the horizon here, that's the enterprise Apepu. These small eucalyptus trees are from an eucalyptus, from a small farmer. So we can see the separation.
Están perdiendo su soberanía alimentaria, de que están perdiendo.
About the conscience of some people saying that this is not right, but the concrete needs of the small farmers, they end up planting the eucalyptus in their houses. So we went with some partners from other organizations, and they were telling us the importance to politicize these issues. And there is another task for the campesino movement to talk with the communities. And I'm closing this, the point of view from the women, youth women and adults. They think that they agree with men about the situation of land, about the crisis and the difficulties, but they also point out the other issues, care economy issues, like the children, like the house, And those are issues that the compañeras and compañeros are working on. And it's the issues of the taking care of the family, taking care of the children, and during the pandemic has been like a triple work, because there is a centralized, we need to, an old lady said that we have to gather and we have to find a way. And it's the fight, the struggle for the land, and it's very important. I want to close with this. What we are seeing is that this business model is reinforcing this extractivist process, and it's very alike the agribusiness model or the land stock business, where only a few are earning the money, and it's going against the many, which are the communities, the people that live in the communities. The speech is that different people from private sector or public sector, that they say that soya has been stigmatized, and in the speech they won, but now they're coming from with other speech, like sustainability, like jobs and so on, and all these metaphors like climate change mitigation, which are not a reality. So many of these agribusiness like soybean or cattle are going to this new business, which is the forest business. So now there is a territoriality which is smothering the land, because with the plantations of eucalyptus and not letting native species to grow. Finally, what they are achieving is the fragmentation of the communities. They are fracturing culture, traditions, and it's breaking the food security capacity of these communities. Thank you very much. Thank you for the space.
Muchas gracias, Omar, por
Thank you
esa
very much, Omar, for that presentation.
tan clara y abundante
So clear and so robust on explaining the tactics and the strategies
que nos muestran la manera
that we are seeing
entre los poderes políticos
on how the business sector is supporting, the public sector is supporting the business sector. So we have to focus on that. Now we want to express as collective from the territory. We want to invite our partner so he can introduce himself, and our partner Francisco, so he can introduce himself and start speaking. Hello? Do you hear me? Hello?
Sí, Francisco, se te escucha.
Yes, Francisco, we can hear you. Yes. Hello. We cannot listen to Francisco, but we can see him.
Yo te escucho bien.
I can hear Francisco.
Sí.
Ahora sí. Ahora se escucha. Ya.
Now everybody's listening.
Vamos a llamar por teléfono a Francisco.
We're going to call by phone. We're going to
Sí, se
call
escucha.
Francisco.
Ahí sí, Francisco.
Sí, le escuchamos.
No, you can speak, Francisco. Everybody's listening to you. Hello.
Sí, escucha. Sí, te pongo aquí en el micrófono, Francisco.
I'm going to put you in the microphone so everybody can hear you, because we couldn't hear you.
¿Aló, me escucha?
Can you hear me?
¿Aló? Parece que no me escuchan.
Sí,
Ah.
sí, le escuchamos súper bien.
We can hear you.
Parece un atraso con su internet, pero le estamos escuchando.
I think there's a delay with the internet, but we can hear.
¿Aló?
Súper bien, Francisco. ¿Cómo está? Aquí.
We can hear you very well.
Sí.
Thank you.
Escuchamos bien. La comuna mariquina, región de los ríos, Chile.
Here from Chile, from the community. I am a social leader from the Mapuche. I'm social fighter for our territory, for our land, our territory, Mapuche, and defending all the diversity of our people. And at the same time, protecting ourselves from what the forest sector is doing within our comuna, our community, and the cellulose plant, because it's affecting the wetlands that were protected by the Ramsar Convention, and that today everything is contaminated, and the cellulose plant is still sending all the pollution to the rivers, to the waters. Supposedly with some treatment, but little by little we're seeing the pollution. Now they want to do the dock to the sea, but that doesn't mean that they are not going to keep polluting the river.
And the communities have been in
Here the
resistance for more than
communities have a
20
resistance
years
of
so
over
that this
20
contamination doesn't enter our communities. But in our area, our territory, all of the contamination is coming from the cellulosa plants and also coming from the water, all the chemicals that are added into the water, but nobody does anything. No environmentalists who control the environment in the state of Chile, and the rules are very gentle. They continue contaminating, continue working every day and throwing all of the waste into the rivers. And the forest plantations also are destroying practically everything, all of the land. They're all in, all of the land was able to be cultivated by, and now it's completely taken over with pine and eucalyptus plantations. And the discourse that was given in this time was very attractive to the communities, for people and who wanted to have a lot of work. That's what the plantation said. They would give their lands over to the forestry businesses, and some would be taken over by the Chilean government and passed to the forestry businesses. And so for the Chilean government would hand over the land directly to the companies. And they would incentivize the forestry businesses, giving them all benefits in order to see these businesses now. They cover the entire territory, and there are conflicts that have been generated in the communities. In the 10th region here, there's this problem with the land struggles for the Mapuche people. And the environmental contamination and the social contamination and cultural contamination, health issues, everything that has to do with biodiversity of the human and has been completely interfered with by these companies. And there are very few resources that the communities have, and all of the consumption they have to fight for their dignity, but they sell their land and they sell everything that is social, and the political is sold to people, and all of a sudden they realize everything is lost. And here we've had a lot of difficulties because the business interest is of the big and powerful interests companies, and the state itself doesn't solve anything. And so we see these big conflicts that are playing out with the Pueblo Mapuche defending their territories and trying to recover their lands. And in these last years, they've been calling them conflicts, but as we want to take over the land, they were arrested, and now people are called terrorists. And the business people who came in and took over were valued. But what they've done is come in and destroy the territory, and the Pueblo Mapuche people are the ones that are called terrorists. And the government itself throws so much money to these organizations, and they're free. And here, for defending your territory or throwing a rock or anything, you are taken to jail for 2 years. In the last manifestations at the national level, people are incarcerated, and there's no proof of. So for the Mapuche people, not just here in Chile, but this goes beyond into Argentina. The Pueblo Mapuche crosses the borders of Argentina and Chile. And earlier I was listening to a meeting of the Chile, Argentina, Mapuche people, and the problems are the same in both places. The changes of culture, ideology, and it's the same kind of reality that we're seeing here in Chile. It's very difficult to turn this back. The struggle continues, but it is going to cost a tremendous amount in order to control this conflict, because each day our territory is being taken over more and more. And it looks like the end of the native forests and the species, the flora and fauna, the water, the air that we breathe. is being completely consumed. And with climate change, there are the powerful that are provoking these changes, and it's the communities that are experiencing all the effects of all the social, cultural, and other types of contamination. And the politicians and religious people are pushing people to go in the direction of the businesses, but the Mapuche people are going to continue to struggle for our diversity, for our culture, and our well-being. And this is what concerns us now. And we hope that we can turn it back. We hope that with the new constitution that is being developed now in Chile, we hope that there will be a way that it favors the Mapuche people, even though this is not the whole of what would solve the problem, because each government we are going to have the same problem with each of them. The governments act on the basis of the economy and their development and their progress, and they attract the big business interests. And so this is always going to lead to conflict because of all of the environmental contamination that we're in here. For example, they want to install a wind farm, and this is also being encouraged for the installation, and they want to take over this native forest, and this affects the tremendous number of things that the Mapuche people defend, and now they want to bring in heavy equipment to set up this wind farm, and they have to destroy a tremendous amount of native forest. And this is another problem that we have. And we are resisting this. And we also have contamination of sound, environment, and social contamination, and cultural contamination. We have so many problems to resolve, and I don't know who is able to help us with all of these things that are happening. And governments continue doing the destruction. And we hope that at some point this will be changed. So this is what I have to share with you. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, we hear you. Yes, we hear you. Thank you, companion, for sharing this and for making the connection with what Omar commented on. We see the model that is being replicated, and we're going to continue now in order to be able to hear from the territory of Brazil, and we invite Flavia to present and share her story.
Boa noite.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like my companion who is hosting to share my presentation. I am Flavia. I am from the Quilombola territory, Chapéu do Norte, in Conceição da Barra in Brazil. I am one of the community leaderships here. The community where I live since I was born, it is the community Angelim Doce.
Nós somos quilombola aqui, o território,
We
né?
are Quilombola, our territory, Sapé do Norte. I am part of this movement since I was 15 years old. And I've been following this fight since I was born. I'm also part of the Quilombola Commission, the GP of Quilombola. I coordinate a project called Raízes do Sapé, the roots of the Sapé. I am one of the counselors of the national movement of human rights. Talking a little bit more about our territory, it is made of 2 cities called São Mateus de Conceição da Barra.
Essas 2 cidades, elas são
And these 2 cities, they are known, historically known, because of the fights of the Black and Quilombola people since the slavery times.
E pelas percas das terras
And from the loss of our lands to the production of eucalyptus and sugarcane. Approximately in 1916, the big company arrived. It had different names before, Acesita, Veracruz, Fibria, and now it's called Suzano.
Os companheiros aí que
And I'm telling my colleagues who presented before, they arrived with the same speech of generating profits, bringing jobs to the community, the Quilombola people.
do momento que eles
And from the
conseguiram
moment that they started to establish in the lands, in our lands, because most of the land of the territory Sapé do Norte was bought at a very cheap cost.
famílias até ameaçadas
Some people, they exchanged the lands, and others were intimidated to give up their land so they could plant eucalyptus.
então o povo quilombola
So the Quilombola people, they started to organize themselves as a movement to resist the impacts from the big eucalyptus companies. Most of the people here, about 12,000 families and 100 communities in this territory.
Las
At the
comunidades de este
moment,
territorio,
only 32 communities are
solo
recognized,
32 comunidades,
approximately 1,200 people, 1,200 families, from 12,000, 1,200. It's a very sad loss, this. The rural exodus started to happen once the eucalyptus started to arrive. There were no jobs. The destruction also arrived, and all the families in the territory who used to work with the traditional yucca plantations and other plantations, they just were destroyed. And with the monoculture, this all was destroyed because the forest was destroyed in order to plant only eucalyptus. And the production of dendê was also cut. So everything that was food supplies for the people, they were strategically removed from us. So it had the goal, I believe. So imagine how I felt, how our people felt when they started to take away everything from our lands. That picture there, it's very recent. It is of the community, Angelim Doce. It was taken from one of my companions. The current company, Suzano, it works here with the monoculture. And that was an action that the community established. The company, we have a process that we call taking back the quilombolas. When the company starts going too deep into the forest, into the rivers, we start going and taking back by removing eucalyptus and planting native plants. It's a way that we can resist, or else they'll just plant everything in front of our doorsteps. So we've done that, we've planted, and they started to enter our fields with those machines that you see in the pictures. So the community started to mobilize and had a strike against that company that they wanted to destroy a plantation that was volunteer work from the community, a way to resist with the minimum dignity possible. You can go to the next slide. The company, they worked with several applications of products and agrotoxics. The community, we try to work with an agroecological plantation as much as we can. And these applications, they affect directly our production. And our production is of food. And when we arrive, when they arrive to apply, they apply it by plane. And the plane, you don't know where the poison is going to fall. They apply with tractors in the borders between the lands and the forests. They kill all our plants. Everything that you have planted in the borders of our lands, they all die because of the poisons, and they're contaminated by the agrotoxics that they apply. When it rains, everything goes straight to the rivers, to the waters that we drink every day. And this affects directly the community. The impacts are very real, very clear. This image you see is also of our territory. Conceição da Barra, Angelim 1 and 2. On the right, that puddle of water is the start of a river, and it's a river that's not there anymore. And on the other side, the very dark water is the Rio Angelim, the Angelim River, which is the river that gives our name to our community. And it's a river that ends in the ocean, and it created all my ancestors. 10, 12 years ago, I used to see it, but now it's a water that nobody can access. It's completely polluted by the agrotoxics, by the leftovers of the sugarcane mills that they are all thrown in the river, and also by the lack of conscience of the people who do the monoculture plantations. Please, next slide.
Pode passar a foto.
You can go to the next picture.
A gente tem também a questão do apoio.
We also have the support from the state. We are legally recognized by the state. There is a process that is in process, it's happening, but it's currently stopped.
Retorno
There
para
is no return to the communities because of this. There has been over 20 years of fighting
mais de 10 anos
since 2005, so over 10 years of recognition and no centimeter of, no inch of land that is ours. And these lands, they are guaranteed by us by law, but we're waiting for the state to give us the title of this.
e enquanto isso nós sofremos todas as
While
consequências.
this is happening, we are suffering the consequences of everything that's been happening by society and the lack of willingness from the state. That picture is of the artisanal production of dendê,
Nosso alimento,
our ancestral food.
nossas famílias todas viviam
All our families, they have lived and still live from sending dendê, the oil that comes from dendê.
inclusive minha mãe,
And the other picture is my mom. She is producing brooms that they are taken from the vines. But we ask ourselves, where do we get the vines to produce brooms? Because eucalyptus doesn't produce vines. 62% of the city of Município da Barra has eucalyptus planted. And I always ask myself, where is the rest of the city? You can go to the next slide, please.
Eu fico meio perdida porque
I feel a little bit lost because my slides have another person passing them, and we also have a small problem with the internet. The internet here is not fast as it should be.
justamente porque o eucalipto é muito alto.
And it's precisely because the eucalyptus is too tall and the signal is interrupted. So I can't talk and share and have my camera on. The call keeps dying.
Pode passar a foto.
Next slide, please.
Para a próxima imagem.
Next slide, please.
Isto.
That's it. That is a picture of the community's production. The community lives from the agriculture. The space is very small. And we live from the agroecological production of food. And as I've mentioned, we have a very large difficulty to keep this production due to the large application of the agrotoxics around our production.
Ele passou demais.
I think he went too far. If you,
Mas ao redor do slide que ele estava apresentando,
in regards to the slide that it was showing, in the background, behind the plantation of greens, you can see the plantation of the eucalyptus monoculture. So you can see the agroecology and the agrotoxics in the same space. Can you go back one picture, please? Just so I can finish. That was the picture that I was talking about, that in the background you can see the monoculture of eucalyptus, and on the side the plantation of greens, which is our source of food, and it's an agroecological production. The next slide. Next slide.
Não tá passando. Bom, a próxima imagem.
Well, the next image, that one. This is a way that we have to show resistance. It's a picture that represents the territory, Sapé do Norte. Each member who's sitting there, it's a table from the Quilombola Commission, and each person represents the leadership of one community within Sapé do Norte. There are approximately 32 communities gathered together, fighting for the rights of the Quilombolas. Strategically, this is the way that we have to get together every month, because to live in this territory every day, it's a surprise. It's a surprise every day that when we live here. So this is a way to try to resist. And the Black people, we have this. We don't put ourselves down with threats. We started to understand that we have our rights and we are human beings. We're people just like anyone else in the world. So we don't walk alone, never. We are always getting together and fighting together. Every day getting closer. The Quilombola Commission, it is an institution that gives support to the communities, and always. And this meeting is once a month, but whenever we need to and it's necessary, we get together. But this is our strength. Our union is our strength. And all these events, these presentations that I've shown you, this is all movement of the Quilombola unions. This image is of the community Angelino Dois, but all the communities of Sapé do Norte, they are living daily these conflicts and these actions. We don't have drinkable water to drink and to eat. We don't have a safe life. We are threatened intimately by these companies every day. We are intimidated by these companies, and these actions happen every day. We are told these fables of money and jobs, and now they have this program of sustainability and agroecology. This is all to fool the people and to try to reach their goal, which is simply to make profit. So to finalize, you can change to the next slide.
Não passou. O último.
It didn't go through to the last slide.
Yeah, I think there's a delay,
Este
unfortunately.
último slide é somente para Posso continuar?
Can I continue?
Pode, sim, por favor.
Yes, you can. Please continue.
Será que eu posso continuar, gente?
Can I really continue? Can somebody reply?
Continúe, continúe.
Sí, por favor, continúa.
Tá. Então, o último slide é
So the last slide
do Rio Angelim, que
is the image of the Angeline River, which is a very important river to us.
se encontra hoje.
The situation that it looks like today, what the Rio Angeline looks like today.
10 metros,
It's a river of more or less 10 meters wide. And today it's
espaço
just a space without any utility.
olhar e tirar foto.
All you can do is go by, take a picture and cry of sadness.
Então, é isso que eu tinha que apresentar.
So that's what I wanted to present, to share a little bit about our struggles and our fight, specifically to the Sapé do Norte territories and against the monoculture of eucalyptus and sugarcane. I'd like to thank everyone for the space and the opportunity, and also to share with the other companions. We feel on our skin the reality. I've participated in an event where other people would talk about monocultures in the same lines with almost the same struggles. And most of the times, these struggles are the same with the big companies and the monoculture. They all are thinking that they're better than the people and the people's lives. Thank you and good night.
Muchas gracias, Flavia.
Thank you, Flavia,
Testimonio
for this testimony.
también. Y también ponernos
We
en
are also grateful for giving the perspective
el testimonio de Francisco
with
y
the testimony from Francisco and Omar
de cómo
with
se
respect
degrada
to
no solo el
how
suelo,
what is being
sino también
degraded is not just the soil, but the
formas de vida.
cultures and styles of life.
Pasemos, entonces quizás a un pequeño momento de
So perhaps we can take a
reflexión,
moment for conversation if there's any
para aportar a esta
conversation
conversación,
to add to
quizás
this
el mismo
discussion.
exponente
Maybe the
pueda
presenters would have
generar una conversación o quien
opportunity
quiera
to
participante.
get a conversation started, or from any of the participants. You can please let us know if you would like to say something.
Omar, por favor.
Go ahead, Omar.
Sí, me gustaría consultarle a la
I would
compañera
like to
Flavia
ask my companion Flavia
el proceso organizativo ahí,
what the organizing process was, how they
mencionando
are
la problemática.
looking at the problem, because in the territories here in Paraguay, we needed to understand the community organizing and the understanding of the problem, because people didn't understand things. There wasn't a clear understanding of the impacts of the eucalyptus, and so there's a resistance that's generated. So I would like to know a little bit more about the experience that you had there, how you were building the idea of the plantation's impacts on the territories. Just that. Thank you.
Então,
So
nós percebemos assim,
we noticed that initially we noticed the impacts due to the change both in the water and in the nature,
a gente viu as mudanças.
and soon we started to see the changes.
Nós também conseguimos, né,
But we
com
also
redes de
were
apoios, né,
able
ONGs,
through our support networks,
pessoas
human rights universities,
né, que tinham
people
acesso
within
também à
movements
educação,
who also had access to education.
se organizassem, inclusive a fase é uma
And these people encouraged us to
se organizar
organize
no
ourselves,
processo de
including FAVI is important for us, and they helped us organize ourselves as a Quilombola people. Because in many communities, people still believed that, no, they are nice. They talk about agroecology. So this process of education that has to be continuous was very important for the Quilombola people to understand that we were thrown away, exterminated. They were ending with our future, with our nature, and our traditional ways of living. So from knowledge that we started to organize ourselves as a movement, as a commission, as an institution, and think strategies of action. But we also have laws that guarantee and protect us as a known territory. What doesn't go along with us and doesn't help us is racism, that the state doesn't really care about our struggles and our rights. Instead of trying to help us as we have by the Constitution guaranteed rights, they want to remove it from us. So we started to notice that through these impacts.
Gracias, Flavia.
Gracias. Thank you for the context and giving us a little bit deeper and more specific perspective. And thank you, Omar, for the question. Are there any other thoughts that people would like to share? I don't see any hands up, but perhaps if there are people who would like to ask a question, or they can activate their microphones, you can invite more people. Also, if I could share from Viento Sur, the work that has been done in the analysis and the studies of how the impacts are more and more associated with certain territories and certain communities. It's the same comment that Flavia was sharing with racism on the part of the state and policies that the territories exercise. These are the marks of the permanence of a monoculture, and permits the expansion and the destruction of the environment and the cultural and environmental context. So now I would like to invite anybody else who would like to continue the reflection as a part of our work on working against biomass as a form of energy.
Hello, good evening. Everyone is all right.
Ok. Então, meu nome é Beto.
So my name is Beto. I am from the FASI team in Espírito Santo. I am Flavia's companion who just spoke with you. And I'd like to leave my contribution. We are in a very large country, but the state of Espírito Santo is very small. And we are about 3.5 million inhabitants. And there is something very curious. When the eucalyptus monoculture arrived in the 60s, as Flavia mentioned, they started taking down indigenous and quilombola lands. But almost everybody in Espírito Santo has a kind of relationship. Even the people in the cities have a relationship with the fields. And in the fields, eucalyptus has been using for many years to dry out streams, where the farmers in the early 20s started to flood because they wanted to own that land. They knew that they needed to plant eucalyptus to dry out their land and then plant coffee, corn, whatever monoculture they had. So the pulp mills, they didn't have a lot of success with the idea that eucalyptus doesn't destroy. So today in Espírito Santo, it's a consensus of the socio-ambiental damage that the eucalyptus causes. Only the patriarchy companies and societies that have some profit, and there's not much profit that stays here, they continue to defend the monoculture. So everything that I've heard, and Flavia reinforced this, we have been living with this monster for over 70 years, and the practice that these companies have in any place in the world, it's very similar to what has happened and is still happening in Brazil and in Espírito Santo. We'll keep fighting, right? They are big, but they burn easily. Hugs to everyone.
Thank you, Beto.
May I say one more thing, please? FASI, together with other organizations, it comes together with the Alerta against the green desert. It was built in Espírito Santo, but it's part of several states in Brazil fighting against monoculture, not just eucalyptus, but in the north, the African palm. It's taken over several territories. And together with other organizations in Latin America, we are part of RICOMA, the Latin American network against the tree plantation. So what I mean is we're all in the same fight.
Así es, muchas gracias. Daniel tiene la mano levantada, por favor.
Daniel has his hand up. Please go ahead. Good evening, companions. I am Daniela. I would like to share a little bit about the struggle that we have in the Chilean state of Maule. In our zone, we are threatened with the agroforestry temple project for a long time. Nevertheless, there's an energy project that is linked to the production of energy based on the burning of rice hulls and biomass together with hay. And this is curious because it's being activated at the same time that there's mining companies and there's a highway that is running along the border of the Andes. And this also serves to promote more extractivism that we experience here in this zone. So it is truly a concerning situation because the government continues to give power to these organizations. And so now we are experiencing these companies coming in where we live, and the government, the ministries, and plans that they put up for that are based on the non-carbon emissions, but they say that biomass is going to be capturing it, and then it can be burned, it liberates. But this is where the problem is. So we have contacted an NGO to see if there's a way to help us articulate the struggle, but also to continue working to having a regenerative economy that's better for the economy and the ecology, and would be regenerative for us for a way of relating and work and producing and living together. We have been working on this struggle, and right now we think that this company, without a doubt, is going to have an impact because they are incentivizing people to produce all the things that are being used to burn to produce this carbon and they're renting people's lands or taking over their lands. And the truth is that it's complicated because they give the impression things are going to go well, that the environment will be left clean and renewable, that this is very ecological, it's going to generate jobs, it doesn't use water. So there's a whole fabric of disinformation that is being used. And so we came to share space with you all. Thanks for the invitation, for the extension of Viento Sur to allow us to be here. It's very interesting to us, important to us to continue working, not just in this network, but at others that we work on water and land in other parts of Chile. It's very relevant to continue looking at this issue of monoculture, of forests. Chile is developing a new constitution, which is going to be and everything that's going into it is going to be very important for helping us address the climate crisis and the ecosystem. So thank you very much. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you for sharing this perspective from Chile, which is being transformed in this very moment. We also appreciate your contribution, and of course, as a collective, we are always ready to support this type of network. And now, let's see, is there anybody else who would like to enrich the conversation? It's important to have a dialogue. We want to have questions among the different speakers to share experiences. I also would like to mention, in order to contextualize this situation, the Chilean situation, adding to what Daniel has already shared, the state of Chile has created a second exception in the zone where there's interest for the cultivation of exotic species like eucalyptus and pine, and there is a form of exporting the biomass. And so in this region, we can see large numbers of boats that are going toward the east and the Pacific, and the extension of monoculture of eucalyptus on the hills of the Valdivian coast, and all going north, all the way up to the Rio Biobío and above. So I would like to leave the floor open to see if anybody else would like to add to the conversation. Eduardo, go ahead.
Hola, compas, ¿cómo están?
Hello, how are
Buenas
you?
noches.
Good evening.
Sí, yo quisiera tomarme de la
I would
intervención
like to
de Daniel
join speaking
para
to
poner
Daniel's point
énfasis en la necesidad
to emphasize the need
de involucrar a más y más
to
organizaciones
involve more and more
de nuestra
organizations
región
from our region
latinoamericana,
in Latin
fundamentalmente
America,
sudamericana, en el caso, ¿no es
fundamentally
cierto?,
South
del modelo
Americans,
forestal,
because of this agroforestry
con
model,
FASE de Brasil y GENOI
which has
de
connections
Paraguay.
with
Hoy día estamos
Brazil and
compartiendo
Paraguay. We are sharing
la participación tanto
the
la Coalición Mundial de
participation
Bosques
of the
como la
Global Forest
Plataforma
Foundation
Latinoamericana y del Caribe por la Justicia Climática.
and also dealing
Pero
with
creemos que es
climate justice
sumamente
issues.
importante
So
involucrar a
it
más
is extremely
organizaciones, sobre
important
todo
to involve other
en comunidades
organizations,
locales, comunidades
particularly in
afectadas, pequeñas
local communities,
organizaciones de
affected
base,
communities, small
para ir
community-based
fortaleciendo esta
organizations,
lucha
because
y la
this
oposición a este
struggle
modelo
and the
tan
position of this
nefasto
model that is so so problematic.
probablemente todos saben, digamos, que
And
tiene como uno de sus centros
many
de
of you
promoción
know
más
that they have
importantes,
these
el caso de
promotion
Chile.
centers, particularly in the case of
Entonces,
Chile.
organizaciones como las que hemos visto
So
exponiendo aquí
organizations like we've seen
directamente
sharing
desde las
here
luchas territoriales,
are the ones who are
súper
directly
importante que nos mantengamos
important
articulados.
because they are the ones that are helping us to
Por otro
express.
lado, desenmascarando, ¿no es cierto?,
And we also need to unmask
todo lo que permite que este modelo se
everything,
siga
this
expandiendo.
myth
Muy bien,
that
Daniel decía
continues the
que
model to
la
continue
energía eléctrica a
to
partir de
expand
biomasa es también
because
termoelectricidad, por cierto, que es termoelectricidad,
biomass burning,
y
it
eso se
generates
esconde,
electricity.
se
Yes, but
esconde,
this is
y se esconden sus
a
impactos
hidden
detrás de la
impact and the
la supuesta
consequences,
carbono
the
neutralidad,
supposed
que
carbon
además es
neutrality,
tremendamente
which
mentirosa.
is
Y que
extremely
en el caso
untrue.
nuestro acá en
And
Viento
in
Sur
our
hemos ido
case, and
identificando y señalando cómo el
we
modelo
have been
forestal completo, desde
signaling
las
how this
plantaciones,
forestry
pasando por
plantation
las plantas
approach
de
are
celulosa, las plantas de
are
bioenergía y los
being
mercados de carbono,
planted
es
with
toda una cadena de
a
falsas
whole
soluciones al cambio climático que es
chain of
necesario
false solutions to
desenmascarar
climate change.
y seguir enfrentando
And
cada
we
día
have to
más.
continue
En
taking
ese
this on every
sentido,
single day.
junto
And along
con
these
Coalición
lines,
Mundial de
together
los
with
Bosques, acabamos
the Global Forest
de recibir
Coalition,
recién
and
editado
after receiving the
digitalmente un estudio que
recently
realizamos junto
edited
con la
study
coalición
that came from the
sobre la planta de
coalition
biomasa
that
de
was
Valdivia,
being
que es de la
looked at in the
empresa que hoy día
biomass
ya es
plant in
una
Bolivia.
empresa transnacional, que es
This
Arauco,
is a transnational
dueña, ¿no es
company,
cierto?,
Arauco,
de cientos de miles o
and they
millones
have
de hectáreas de
100
plantaciones
million
en Chile y
hectares
de
of
múltiples
land in
plantas de
Chile
celulosa y
and
de
many
energía de
cellulose
biomasa.
plants
Esperamos
and
próximamente poder
biomass. And we
compartir
hope that we will be
este
able
trabajo que no
to
alcanzamos
share
a
this
mostrar
work
hoy día,
because we
pero
weren't
que
able to share it
vamos a
tonight,
compartir con todas
but
y
we're
todos
going to
ustedes
continue to share with all of you
próximamente. Eso
soon.
solamente, Diego, muchas gracias.
This is all that I'd like to say. Thank you, Diego. Thanks to you, Edu, and also thanks to those who have supported in the coordination of this event, all the organizations that have participated, and people who presented their testimony in this experience. We are almost at time, but I want to give time for Simone. Go ahead, Simone. I just wanted to thank everybody for their presentations and for all the organizations who are involved, all the different organizations, also Ali, who did a tremendous effort to organize this. And I wanted to share the microphone with Miguel, who is sharing his Zoom connection, who has a few observations about what's going on here in Paraguay. Good evening to everyone. I wanted to say a couple things about the fascinating of the use that is currently being made of the biomass as an energy source, particularly here in Paraguay. Obviously, there are many people from the communities who use carbon or wood to cook and for other home-based art businesses, because in reality, in Paraguay, there is hydroelectric power in excess. And I'm saying it this way so you can see the contradiction. So Paraguay is a country that has so much energy. It's per capita, it's the same as Kuwait. There are 9 million kilowatt hours per year per inhabitant, approximately. And the Kuwaiti have this with oil, and we have it with hydroelectric power. Nevertheless, 50% or a little bit more of the energy in the country is based on wood and biomass from the forest. And the principal energy for all of this expansion are those who are interested in following this model that was well explained by our colleagues from Brazil and from Paraguay, and Omar from Paraguay. And it's an incredible contradiction. We have 2 kilowatts per hour per year per capita that we give to the industry that dries grains, and they're supplanting all of the necessity for drying these grains. But they can't make that investment. They can't make this investment because in reality, the mandate, the hegemonic mandate, is to replace petroleum, produce primary materials in order to produce other fossil and forms of energy. And all of this hydroelectric energy is reserved for their own use. But in our case, Paraguay can't touch their own energy. And in this process, we liquidate ecosystems and lifestyles among the people who live in the communities. We annihilate our biodiversity, and we contribute to 96% of the greenhouse gases from Paraguay are coming from the agriculture and cattle farming. I just wanted to share this with you and thank you for the excellent evening of information and to alleviate our curiosity about what's happening in this important sector. Thank you very much, and we'll be in touch soon.
Gracias, Miguel y Simone.
Thank you both.
El saludo desde el
And
y
greetings from Paraguay.
todas las personas que
We also want to thank everyone who's participated with us this evening and have been listening to this transmission.
hay una transmisión también,
We
así que puede que hay muchas personas que pueden estar
There could be a lot of people who are hearing
escuchando relatos por
this
primera
type
vez
of
o
story for the first time, or maybe the first time that they're getting to know this type of reality. But we are hoping to express through this, and we really appreciate the work of Oliver and GFC, Eduardo, Camila, Joana, all the people from the collective Viento Sur, and also the organizations that are part of this process in order to make visible the way and more aggressive, so that we can see that the forestry industry and the monocultures are leaving their mark in our territories. So we can stop at this point and thank the presence and the sharing. And we invite you to stay attentive for upcoming events from Proyecto Sur and from the Global Forest Coalition, and also with the support of the network of the. And so thank you for your participation, and stay healthy, take care of yourselves, and we will see one another soon. Thank you. Good night, compas. See you soon. Good night. Good night. Thank you. Good evening. Good night.
Thanks, everybody. Good night.
Ciao, Francisco. Ciao, Francisco.
Oli. Bye, Oli.
Adios, Oli.
Ciao, Oli.
Goodbye,
Gracias
Oli.
por todo.